think it was actually kind of deliberate. What you're trying to figure out is there's only two of us up here, so which of the two that are real and who are the other two coming up here? So we'll go through that. Well, welcome back, as Rob was saying. Look, we spent the last 11 sessions today exploring AI. We've looked at it from a technical perspective, its capacity, how it's deployed. We've deployed it in SOCs and how it's used in there. We've talked about managing AI in the era of frontier AI models. What I haven't heard a lot of, and we're going to talk about this afternoon, is the human perspective of all of that. And so what's the impact, for example, on employees when they get caught up in the push to capitalize on AI? And that's a very nice way of saying what happens when they're fired because of AI coming through, and what are the challenges that creates for organization. And the program talks about intelligence and espionage and things like that, and we're going to explore a little bit of that. What I'd like to do to start off is just get the panelists' impression of sort of where are we, what are their initial thoughts on the subject. Then we're going to go down a little deeper into some specifics on it. But what we wanted to do at the end was leave some time for questions. So we want to hear your thoughts on this, because this is one of those areas where everybody's got an opinion and we value yours. So we'd like to hear and get a bit of a conversation. So Julie, why don't you start off and talk a little bit about you and what are your thoughts? You're taking a look at this from the perspective of providing information out to companies. So tell us about it.
Thanks very much, Bob, and good afternoon. My name is Julia, and I've got the pleasure of representing Ontario Government's Cybersecurity Centre of Excellence, where our work focuses on governance, strategy, education, and awareness for the province, but we're doing a lot of that actually across Canada right now. So in terms of being on the panel today and understanding the use of AI, especially on its efficiency, how fast AI is moving, it's definitely a topic of discussion that we're seeing across government. And in this morning's session here, we had our CISO, Danielle Spagnola, on the panel speaking a little bit more about the AI capabilities that we have, but how does this really impact our country and our nation, right? So I'm really excited to really dive deep. I know you've got a lot of questions that you have kind of teed up here, Bob, so really interested in taking part of today's panel discussion.
Okay. Thanks, Julie. Ellie.
Good afternoon. I'm Ali Shahidi, the head of cybersecurity for Infrastructure Ontario, another government agency. We are here basically to discuss, as Bob mentioned, the challenge that we always have been facing, and lots of discussions about that frontline workers and how we are going to deal with that, and whether we are really going to have a challenge or not, and what we call challenge or mistake or error or whatever. So the reality is that AI has been here for long, and we cannot avoid it, and no one and everyone is moving toward it. It's just about predicting. As the panelists this morning, they were talking about that doing the basic things right from the beginning. So that's the whole idea.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Ellie. Tushar.
So everyone, I am the VP of Cybersecurity at GoEasy. I've been there for almost 5 years. Actually 5+ years now. Fantastic organization, really people-driven. Its culture is very unique, at least in my experience in the 5+ years that I've actually been there. It's really focused on how we can actually improve people's life here in Canada with the financial products that we actually have in. And again, I'm really, really privileged to actually be part of that organization as well. AI adoption is something that we are looking into. We are in the journey, depending on which department, which business unit you actually talk to. They will tell you that they're at different phases of that journey, and how we're learning to deal with shadow AI concept, which I'm sure it'll come up as well as we go through the afternoon today. But it's a very interesting journey across different organizations in terms of the opportunities that AI presents, and also some of the challenges that we will talk about. Fighting the front line, obviously, or the AI or the tech workforce is one of them. Really happy to get engaged in that, Bob.
Thanks, Tushar. Let's start getting into some of what those challenges are and the impact that comes out of it. I'm going to start off with you, Julia. We've seen automation before. This is not new. But AI-driven layoffs are of a different sort because they involve people who have deep knowledge of the systems within your organization. Some would argue that this is the latest intelligence leak in Canadian history. Are we overreacting to this, or are we actually underestimating the risk? What's your thoughts?
I think that's an excellent question. I think in terms of the AI movement in automation, that's something that's not new to our nation, right? That's something, but what is new is the AI automation when it comes to cybersecurity. When it comes to AI, what I mentioned in terms of speed, consistency, and efficiency, we've seen that on a daily basis, and we're using that. I think there was like some stat that I think like over 80% of public sector servants are relying on Microsoft Copilot to complete our work, right? So there's a lot of reliance and dependencies on that, which also means that we're exposed to a lot of those risks. So when it comes to what we're seeing in the news right now in terms of AI is now taking over frontline staff, technical staff, but we need to ensure that we're seeing that in terms of the front lines and what's happening in the headlines. On paper, it looks like, yeah, we're moving towards modernization, but what we're not talking enough about is what's happening inside the organizations internally. Those are exposing risks, right? And we saw that with the Tesla 2023 cyber attack as well, with insider threats, right? Where they understood all of the vulnerabilities inside the company. And when it comes to our people, process, technology, which we've been talking about, I think, throughout the day today, is around, when it comes to our people, we cannot replace them, and it needs to be the people at the forefront and our humans at the forefront when it comes to AI. So there is a gap when it comes to AI can replace humans. That is just one misconception. But when it comes to cybersecurity, it's not just an HR gap. It's actually a gap that we're seeing in terms of challenges on a cybersecurity front, compliance front, and in terms of our operations front. And this goes line in line with our Ontario's releasing of our EDSTA Act, which is the Enhancing Digital Cybersecurity Digital Act and Trust Act. And that really that gives us an understanding of what are the operational risks to the organization, where's our maturity assessment, and we actually just released a cybersecurity assessment tool just a few weeks ago on our portal as well, making it free and accessible to everyone across the broader public sector, including those in hospitals, in healthcare, social services, higher education, and within the K-12 sector, as well as over 27 ministries across the Ontario Public Service. So when it comes to, are we overreacting? I don't think we're overreacting. I think we're finally actually facing the issues and challenges head on. That it isn't something that we're just saying that Ontario or Organization X is now moving to modernization, but we're truly understanding that from the public point of view, but also internally, we're understanding those gaps between our people and the technologies that we're leveraging that to really expedite a lot of our programs that we're seeing now.
Yeah, good, thank you. Interesting challenge when you're running it across that many organizations. It's one thing in one vertical, but you've got multiple verticals with all the challenges that go along that. So I'm glad it's you and not me having to deal with that. Ali, if you had to choose, what's the bigger systemic risk today? Is it human error or AI systems that can fail at scale? And what does that imply for how we design security teams?
Good question. If I would choose, to be honest, I would choose that it's a false trade-off for basically this concept. And the reality is that the human error has been always the root cause of pretty much most of the cyber incidents that we have dealt with. And now by adding AI to it, we are just amplifying the scale of this, basically, such incidents. So human error remains. It's going to remain forever. And the reality is that even the AI models that we have, we are training them to act certain ways. The challenge is going to be related to, again, the scale of this that is going to be at a higher speed. This morning, the panelists, they were talking about the speed and velocity of the events. And while in the past, a user error would be just localized to that specific environment, now if we are talking about an AI error, it can become industrial and global event even. So we need to have this trade-off between these two and make sure that basically we are looking at it from different perspective, while we still consider the human error to be the source of all of them. So at the end of the day, we need to look at it from a different perspective. As Julia was talking about that, everyone is moving toward innovative ideas, trying to use AI and bring in where basically that new models into the game. But without the consideration that having the basics, again, this morning we heard that we are talking about having the basics in place. The same basics apply to the AI models, but from different lens. While in the past we were more on the preventative type of mentality and mindset when it comes to the security, now the reality is that with the current situation, we need to be more resilient. Resiliency is now the key. And we know that we are going to fail at one point, and we need to be ready for fast fail and recover faster than failure. This is going to be, I think, the key of moving forward, how we are operating. If we don't be prepared for that, then at the end of the day, we are going to face it. So from the security perspective and how we are going to shape our future teams, we need them. The reality is that now it's not that AI is going to, even automations and autonomous and everything that we are doing right now, from the basically discovery phase and all of that. And as we heard this morning again, we cannot automate everything that is going to, let's say, block a user or whatever. The human factor is going to remain there. But from security team building perspective, I think the key would be to have a combination of, now in the past we had just certain areas of the security expertise and basically skill sets within our teams that we had. Now in order to make it more basically AI ready type of security response, that again resilience part of it falls under it, would be adding data scientists, for example, to the team. Having basically AI risk models developed within the security teams that we have. We have different type of compliances related to the risk management, but at the end of the day now we are talking about AI risk management, which is, I see it even in many different organizations that have been, and within public sector, private sector, that everyone is racing toward that, but they don't think that the biggest challenge is their governance and the guardrails that they need to put in place to prevent any type of unknowns that they are going to deal with. So that's going to be it. So if we are talking about human risk or error or risk as a spark, I can say that if we are dealing now with AI with that scale and amplified model, now we are talking about wildfire, because it's going to be much larger than what we have seen in the past. And again, rather than localized, now we are talking about much industrial and systematic fail for where we are heading.
Yeah, some really interesting concepts, Ali, you're talking about. And one of the things that struck me, both what you were saying, Ali, and Julia, what you were talking about, and the thing we haven't talked about, maybe at the end we'll come back to it, it's the whole, and you referred to Ali, to the governance side of it. Well, the governance side of it to me is managers. And so is all of this starting to change the role of what managers have to be doing in the system, and how are we preparing them to start to be able to go through that? So maybe we'll come back to that, because I know we've got a lot of other things we want to be talking about. Tushar, I mean, beyond workforce layoff, what are the top one or two AI-driven security risks that you're most concerned about, and how would you prioritize them? And you're the one coming from the private sector, so you're giving a slightly different perspective on this than your colleagues.
Absolutely, Bob. So I view risk as short-term, which means something that might be realized immediately, and then there's a long-term piece, which in the future, it has the capacity to actually become really, really problematic for all organizations put together. So that's how I would prioritize. So from a short-term perspective, the way I look at it right now is shadow AI is one of the biggest problems that most organizations will have. And if you combine that with privileged credentials for non-human IDs or excessive credentials in some cases, that really becomes a problem. So again, shadow AI, for folks who don't know, like a lot of the departments, a lot of the business units within organizations, finance, HR, operations, they basically think that, you give me access to a prompt, I am a prompt engineer, and I can actually replace a software engineer, right? So that's the issue that they're having right now, that they believe that if they have the access and they can actually create new products, new capabilities themselves, just by typing a few things here or there or through voice commands, they can actually do a better job with IT, and then no change management, no governance processes, right? They actually want to skirt everything because speed to market is something that they actually want to go with. So that piece, and you layer that in with all of these different types of capabilities that might have intrusive access within your systems to actually collect that data so that you can actually pull it, dissect it to understand what kind of trends you're actually seeing so that you can build the right type of product, can really be something that in the short term I think is going to cause a lot of grief to a lot of the organizations, especially if they actually get compromised. Both through an insider attack framework or even from an external party if they're actually exposing their AI model externally as well. Now, the long-term piece of it, I think, is the risk of the unknown. And we've heard speakers today talk about what Anthropic's Claude, specifically the Mythos piece actually brings in, or OpenAI that a couple of weeks ago just came back with their latest and greatest 5.5 cyber. I think these models will mature as they actually become more contextualized. There will be that capability where they are no longer requiring any human input. Right now, what you're actually seeing with all of these different models is they are seeing an open internet. We talked about the maple syrup industry as an example in the morning, where, again, they don't have the right capabilities, the right resourcing to essentially have those controls put in for their public-facing assets, right? That's why it's an easy target. But in the long term, as these tools basically have a bit more context, an organization with the financial might and the resourcing might also become a target, right? So that's where I think in the long term, the game will be as these tools mature and more open source capabilities also come into the market, where people do not have to actually go and rely on, hey, will I get access or subscription to one of these models from a security perspective. They will actually be able to be more creative, and that's where I think the bigger risk lies in the longer term as that maturity in the market actually comes to fruitification.
So what you're saying is this is not a problem, it's going to go away.
It's not a problem that's going to go away easily. I had vendors last week reach out to me through an email and said, Tushar, do you know, the mean time to exploit right now is 39 seconds. I said, okay, so what should I do? Should I pack my bags and say I'm done? My career server, 39 seconds. At this point in time, there's nothing that can actually tell you that within 39 seconds, if you detect something that's a vulnerability and you actually are expected to patch in 38 seconds, is that going to happen? I don't know. So,
and what does that do? Just push that a little bit. What does that do to the employee that you've now told, okay, you've got somewhat less than a minute to not only think about it and respond and do something, and if we're telling them that you can't possibly do it in the new timeline, the obvious question is, why do I have you? And you are now replaced by this little computer program.
I think the human element has to be there as a decision point. At some level, you still have to have that fine line between keeping the operations up. Like you can apply a patch, and we've talked about this in the morning as well. You can apply a patch, you can right-size your configuration, but does that break anything in your business? That's where the human element actually comes in, that you still need, for the foreseeable future, a human person that actually becomes that decision point to say, yes, if I apply this specific patch, am I actually going to create more work for downstream teams, or am I actually going to fix something that I know may be exploited? So that's where I think that human element touch is still something that I think we will need, at least in the foreseeable future.
Thank you. I think, Julie, I think that sort of is a nice lead into what you and I were talking about a little while ago. Sort of as organizations start replacing experienced cybersecurity professionals with AI, are we reducing the risk through consistency, or are we concentrating the risk by centralizing sort of that intelligence side of it and losing the human judgment perspective that Sean was talking about?
I would absolutely say concentrating the risk. And the reasons why is I think, what Ali had touched on around cyber resiliency, what Tushar had touched on around, having people at the forefront. So when it comes to cyber resiliency, we know that we need to standardize our tools and our processes. That's what we're seeing at the manager level, executive level in government right now. How do we standardize that? Our approval chain, the use of AI, our privacy policies, everything. And how do we catch up with it? When a policy comes out, how do we make sure that it doesn't get outdated, that it's still very relevant to what's happening out there, or what the next biggest leak is going to be, or the next cybersecurity incident is going to be? So when we talk about our cyber resiliency, we can't really take a tool, and it might be the best and greatest tool, and replace it to say, I've got my program or my organization is now cyber resilient. It still takes people who've actually been there, who've actually been at the forefront through those incidents firsthand. That's taken them decades of perhaps of experience of understanding the system in and out and what vulnerabilities there have been, what compromises have occurred with the system itself. So it still takes that kind of gap there. And that's what I think I was addressing earlier, is around, it isn't just an HR issue in terms of how we're growing and scaling the team, or how we're descaling the team, I would say, like creating a leaner team because of the use of AI. But when it comes to why it's a consistent risk, is because with the use of AI, if there's so much leverage around our data, our decision making, our intellectual knowledge, it holds all of that. So it's all clustered into one. So when it comes to that risk, it's a consistent risk, which we've seen like through and through, again, especially through the Microsoft Copilot, I think the Echo leak that we've seen as well, right? So there's a lot of vulnerabilities in the system. We leveraged AI, we scaled back the team, and there were compromises that has occurred. So, what do we do about that? But I'm open to hearing more maybe from Tushar and Ali in terms of, your thoughts on that. Like, would you agree that it's more of a consistent risk?
Absolutely. I think that's the key. And one of the biggest gaps and challenges I see that we are facing is the data governance. Basically, that is across the board. Everyone pretty much has this problem. And prior to this, it was very limited again, the exposure and whatever we had dealing with and the type of risks that we were talking about. But now we are basically with Copilot, for instance, that we are talking about. Many are excited to bring in Copilot, and right away they want to open the door without considering that what they are really dealing with behind the scene. And that's the behind the scene is again lack of knowing their data and data classification, everything else that they are dealing with. And going back to the human factor and making the decisions, that's again considering this morning when Daniela mentioned that we have 1.6 trillion whatever events that we have to do. Of course, no human being number of human beings can deal with that unless we automate. But that automation, the decisions that eventually we need to make are going to be the key decisions. We don't want to also interfere with that automation so much that is going to slow down and put us back again to where what we were in the past. So those are the key factors I think that we need to consider and make sure that but as I go back again to what I said, data governance is one of the biggest gaps that we are dealing with right now. And many organizations don't realize that because no one was prepared for this.
Yeah, some good points in there. We should probably, if we get some time at the end, we should probably explore that a little more. But let me go back to this, something, Ali, you and I talked about the other day. In the area of automated detection programs, how do we preserve and measure the value of the human adversarial thinking in looking at that process, especially when motives like espionage or geopolitical are signaling, they're not visible. It's not an easy thing to be able to spot. You can't put a formula on it. So how do you get into, as a practitioner, how do you get in and start to measure that? How do you look at it? How do you assess it?
Well, the incidents and the attacks and the basically everything that we are dealing with, as we know, we have multiple different type of motives and intent for them. And although we are basically training our data and models and everything that how to deal with them, the patterns, data patterns that we are feeding and the models, they cannot understand the motives. That's the problem. And the reality is that that's where the human factor comes to game, because we know all of the geopolitical challenges that we are dealing with, nation-state type of attacks that we are all familiar with. And while the AI basically detections can detect fast, but the reality is that when it comes to the type of incidents that we are dealing with, the motive is the key. The attributes of that type of attack is the key. And AI would not be able to basically understand that part. And even if you look at it, I was thinking about it, even from different sectorial type of concepts. If we look at it from finance sector, government, infrastructure, healthcare, whatever we have, even if we train the models, it's still behind the scene because we are dealing with human elements, that is, or the intent behind the scene, that can be for political reason, ideological, many different factors, that there is no way I would be able to differentiate between them. And as we know, all of the advanced type of attacks that we are dealing with, the signs are not clear. We don't get the signs right away that, okay, what is the motive behind this and the intent of such attack? Is it ransomware? Is it data exfiltration? What is the motive? And we know the advanced ones, always they hide the motive, or they try to actually misdirect us towards something that we think that's the point. But when we, Activia this morning was giving that example about the data leak that they had, and they were thinking that it came from which source, or which, maybe it wasn't them. So in order to do this, we need to understand that motive, and we need to train our security basically staff again, and the ones that are monitoring. The SOC operators, to be honest, if they don't understand and they don't have a good understanding of the AI models, they won't be able to anymore to respond to the incidents of the events, because that is the key, is going to be the key. So we are shifting from the traditional, again, even monitoring perspective that we are talking, that we would require human factor in the middle. We need to make our security basically smarter, as fast as we can, in order to be able to basically detect any type of anomalies or any type of incidents that is going on. So the automation is one thing that we definitely needed, but again, dealing with so much going on right now. But at the end of the day, it's going to be based on the human factor. Again, understanding the business and what we are in exactly, what is our job, why we need to protect something. It can be, again, different depending on different sectors. Public sector, of course, we have different type of mandates that we need to protect. And financial sector is another one. For example, they have their own mandates. Having that understanding is the key factor when it comes to the basically defense, when we are dealing with such areas. Again, the intent and the motive is the key factor that unfortunately AI is not able to identify that, except we have a human element that would be able to recognize that and pass it on to make the right decisions at the time of that challenges and incidents.
I think you've hit on a really good point on the motivation piece. So if I'm an employee and for some reason I'm upset at the company, whether I'm seeing I'm going to be fired or you're asking me to train somebody who's good, somebody or something that's going to replace me, it's one of the things that may start me to move me down the path leading to espionage or getting involved in it. AI is going to be lousy at trying to pick that off because I haven't done anything. I haven't materialized or put into action something that AI can measure. I'm not accessing something I shouldn't. I'm not be downloading things. All the things that our systems are designed to deal with. AI is not going to be good at picking off the motivational piece to do that. That comes back to the human beings. That comes back to your security teams that are sitting and looking at some of that human dimension of it that hasn't yet materialized in activity. And that's where you want to try to stop it. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge for the security teams.
If I may just add this, exactly what you said. We have always dealt with insider threat. We know that that's one of the largest also challenges that we are dealing with. And with what we are going through right now, and by let's say we are going to letting go of IT or security team members, that it becomes, even though we do have the same challenge today, if we let go someone and that person be unhappy, might be not be able to come in or out. But at the same time, now we are talking about knowing that by letting go of the intelligence leak into the game, which is these people, they have knowledge of that environment with all of the risks, all of the gaps, all of the vulnerabilities that AI might not have that knowledge. And they can come on as a backdoor, and as you mentioned, as an espionage or whatever, they can even make alliance with the adversaries to to take revenge even, or make money out of it. Now they're out of job. So
I think, Tushar, we've sort of set you up nicely to give your thoughts on what's going to happen in the next 5 years from now. What does a healthy balance between AI and human expertise in cybersecurity actually look like? And what do we need to start doing now to make that happen? And I'll take notes because I want to find out where I should be investing money.
Sure, absolutely. If I had a crystal ball, Bob, what I would actually envision 5 years from now, AI, if you look at AI as an entity, AI and your security analyst will, need to live and coexist peacefully. From a security analyst perspective, I think AI is just going to be a tool in their kitty. Just like they have 5 other tools. If you look at a SecOps analyst today, they have vulnerability management scanning tools. They have all their SIEM tools and all of those different things. AI will either be incorporated as part of these tools, or they will actually have a standalone tool, especially on the SecOps side, where they actually will be able to understand, reduce the false positives, and be able to actually rely on what is really that requires them to wear their analyst hat, which means, I get bombarded with a million things. AI has basically reduced that number down to 10 for me to actually look at, and this is the 10 that I'm actually going to look at right now that really needs investigation to know if this is a true positive or a false positive for the most part. I think that's where the happy medium will be in 5 years from now. In terms of what needs to be done right now, I think 3 things need to happen. Like, there's a lot of things that need to happen, but 3 things really need to happen. One is the AI capabilities that is essentially provided to us by a lot of the vendors out there. They need to mature a bit more. I think it's more talk rather than the tools themselves have real true AI capabilities that can actually help the cybersecurity analysts to reduce their real time down to actually making sure that they're looking at the real things that require their attention. So that piece needs to be taken care of from a vendor community standpoint. One of the other things you have to look at is from an organization standpoint, a lot of the talk is about how AI is essentially going to reduce your cost base, right? So if you introduce AI, you can get rid of people, which is basically the theme of today's subject. I think that cost-based discussion has to go away as well in terms of how AI, at least in the next 5 years, is going to help augment and complement the skill set that you already have rather than basically replace it. Right? In 5 years' time, I don't think so we're going to have anything earth-shattering that's basically going to say that we're going to get rid of every single human that actually works today, and AI is essentially going to take over. Maybe in the distant future, but I think in the next 5 years, it's basically where that cost decision has to come in. It has to be more in terms of complementary skills rather than replacement as a factor. And I think the third thing that needs to happen is at the grassroots level, where the education, the cybersecurity courses that actually happen today takes place in the universities that are very specifically geared towards cybersecurity. They need to start incorporating the use of AI. Not necessarily teaching students, what is AI, go use ChatGPT, throw 10 prompts at it, but specific use cases for security. How do you actually use the capability that is out there in the market to what your end objective and outcome is? I think that's where those 3 things, if they happen in the next 5 years, you're actually going to see a lot more cohesion between how a security analyst today works and how AI can actually make their lives a bit simpler.
Yeah. I like your concept of coexisting as an interesting way to be able to describe that. It takes us back to international relations, but the coexisting between machinery and the human being, or in this case, the AI and the human side of it. I think it's a good way to be able to look at it, and particularly the three points we've got to do to get there. So
Absolutely.
We've got a couple of minutes left. Are there any questions out there? And I'm looking into nothing but bright lights, so if you have something, stand, yell, or say anything, please.
I have a question. So, talk about just replacing people. It's almost like replacing an entire function. But I think AI is a little different. It changes everybody's job. Everybody's job is going to change. So, the thing you're doing today, I think in the end, are not going to be the same. Oh, sure. Thank you. Is that better? Okay. So, I'll repeat. So, I think replacing a whole job is a little different. I think that AI is going to change everybody's job. And I think, I could be wrong, but we have to re-look at our org chart and see, does that actually make sense? That org chart's been around for like before computers probably. Does that still apply in the agentic world? Is anybody looking back and saying, do we have to rebuild all of our job descriptions and saying this is the way the world is going to be? I'm wondering if that's where we're looking.
I think that's going to come in. Sorry, should I take it? Yeah. I think that's the next logical step in terms of anything that's a repetitive job. Those are the first things that will actually be given over to AI, and I think that's no different than whether it's cybersecurity, tech workforce, or even quite frankly your dentist office, right? Like a receptionist sitting at the front desk might be the first person to actually get replaced before you actually look at some of the other higher capability jobs out there as well. So from my perspective, yes, those job descriptions need to change in as well, but the piece there is it shouldn't be changed blindly in every area. Right? If the capability is not mature enough and you still say, yes, you got to go work with this AI, sure, you're going to try, but is that something that you can actually work with and basically say, I saved 500 hours over a month period doing X versus I spent 200 more hours trying to train this AI and then tune it, and is that actually going to be worth your time as well? So I think there's going to be that cycle, that maturity curve that will actually go in, and a lot of organizations will either learn it the easy way or the hard way, that just using the word AI to reduce their cost structure just doesn't work that way, and that job description needs to change based on what the capability out there in the market is and how tried and tested they are.
Absolutely, I think that's a very good point, and definitely everything is changing, and we need to update all of those job descriptions even. One area that I'm thinking that is missing, and especially from our domain of what we are doing, the reality is that the business side does not know many things that we are considering, we are scared about, and we have concerns about. And now our job, I think, from security, when I'm looking at myself, I say that this is not my job to bring that into the business side. So I get more engaged with them. And they don't know what they don't know, and we cannot expect them. Even the interesting part is that, again, we come up with the policies and everything, but the reality is that those policies are just staying at the policy level. I think from our perspective, our even job functions has changed, and we need to become more business-minded rather than we wait for the business side to bring their problems to us and we say, okay, how we are going to security to solve it. We need to take it back to them and be merged with them and say that these are the areas that you need to think about. And the innovation is the key. A few years ago that I was with Ontario Health, stood up an innovation committee or round table speaking exactly about the same challenges. That at that time it was a bit unknown or not many thinking about that. So we have now, even from our perspective, have that hat of innovation added to the cybersecurity expertise. So,
Okay, thank you. And we've now just nicely run out the clock. So, Ellie, excuse me, Julia, Shar, thank you very much. It was a good session. We could probably spend several hours up here talking about this, but perhaps we'll do that over a break. So thank you very much.
Thank
you.